Good morning. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the SITREP. My name is Scott, and this is your weekly briefing on the latest news and analysis that actually matters to homesteaders, preppers, and anyone trying to build a more resilient life. So we don't just do headlines we don't do headlines just to do them here. We look at the ripple effects, how these global, national, and local stories impact your garden, your livestock, your pantry, and your ability to weather a storm. So if you're ready to dig deeper and get prepared for what's actually coming, not just what they're telling you, then you're in the right place. So go ahead, hit the like button, and if you haven't already, subscribe so you never miss a SITREP, usually every Saturday. All right, so let's get into it. We've got three major stories to cover this week. First, the future of your food, farm bill flutters, and small farm focus. So our first story hits us right where it counts, the dinner table. If you're a homesteader or even just someone trying to source local food, you need to be paying attention to what's happening in Washington with the Farm Bill. Now, I know a Farm Bill sounds about as exciting as watching grass grow. So for us, that's actually interesting. But here's the deal. This bill dictates massive amounts of funding and regulation for everything from crop insurance to food stamps. With that being said, what we're seeing this week are intensified discussions about two key areas that directly impact our lifestyle. And first, there's a growing push to revamp the USDA's meat checkoff programs. And for those who don't know, these are programs where producers, even small ones, depending on the rules, pay a fee on livestock sales that go towards research and promotion. Think of beef, it's what's for dinner. Now, the controversy is that critics argue these programs disproportionately benefit massive industrial scale producers and don't do much for the small, diversified farms that form the backbone of local food systems. There are even lawsuits challenging how this money is spent. And for us, changes to these programs could mean anything from fewer hoops for small processors to jump through to potentially more bureaucratic hurdles if the system gets more centralized. So here's the deal. The second part of this is a bigger, more positive chatter, an increased emphasis on local food systems. There's a realization post-pandemic and amid global supply chain shocks that just-in-time delivery from 3,000 miles away is incredibly fragile. And we're seeing discussions about potential grants and support for local processors, which are a major bottleneck for small-scale meat production. So if you're raising your own hogs or beef, you know how hard it is to get a slaughter date. Especially here in the high desert. We have one really good one, but he is always busy. And if the Farm Bill allocates real resources to fixing that problem, it's a massive, massive win for homesteaders. All right, so the SITREP assessment for this. We are likely months away from a final farm bill, but this is when the deals are being made. So keep an eye on groups like the National Sustainable Agricultural Coalition. And if you're a homesteader, make sure to check your local processing options now. Don't wait until you have an animal ready because you'll probably have to wait an extra few weeks to a month or two. Continue building local relationships with other local producers because a local network is your best defense against processing bottlenecks. This conversation just confirms our foundational principle. Controlling your own food source is the ultimate security, and the industrial system is aware of its own fragility. It's our job to be less dependent on it. So, that's story one. Let me know in the chat if you are finding it harder or easier to get meat processed locally these days. Or if you don't process your own meat, how hard is it to find good quality, not super expensive meat, either at your local grocery store or at your local meat processing facility? So, story two, and that is the global choke points, the Red Sea ripple effect. So supply chains are under a huge strain right now. Our second story takes us around the world. Yes, I know this video is not the Suez Canal, but that's what we're talking about. I couldn't find any video of the Suez Canal. But the real impact will be felt right in your fuel tank and in your wallet. We're seeing continued severe disruptions to shipping in the Red Sea and the Suez Canal. I wonder why. Maybe it has something to do with that it's strained at the Strait of Hormuz and that's closed right now. I don't know. For weeks now, vessels have been under attack, forcing almost all major shipping lines to reroute their fleets around the Cape of Good Hope in South Africa. Now, with that being said, why is this a SITREP level story? Well, because 10 to 15% of global trade and about 30% of global container traffic flows through that narrow passageway. Rerouting around Africa adds weeks to a journey. This isn't just a delay, it's a massive increase in fuel costs for the ships, plus increased insurance rates. And guess who pays for that? We do. Now, while this might seem like it only affects new iPhones or cars, this route is critical for things homesteaders and preppers use. For one, fuel. A significant amount of crude oil and liquefied natural gas passes through this canal. This increases global energy prices, which affects everything from running your generator to trucking supplies. And number two, fertilizer and agricultural inputs. Key components for global fertilizer production and agricultural chemicals move through this route. Increased costs or delays here can affect crop yields and food prices globally next season. And third is general foods. Now, from replacement parts for machinery to basic homesteading supplies sourced globally. So here's the deal. Now, I'm not telling you to create panic. I'm telling you this so you understand the systemic fragility we talk about all the time. So the prepper takeaways: one, anticipate higher fuel costs, which we're already seeing like crazy, especially here in California. Two, consider your fertilizer input supply. And three, stockpile critical, hard to replace items. So for the SITREP assessment here, the industrial globalized just-in-time system is built on efficiency, not resilience. Events like this expose that vulnerability. Our response is simple: double down on resilience. If you're planning to buy a generator, fuel storage, or a large amount of a specific agricultural input for the spring, like fertilizer or something like that, now is the time. Don't wait for the price hike to hit the store shelves. Continue building your deep pantry. This isn't about food. This isn't just about food. It's about medical supplies, basic tools, and anything else that you can't easily make or find locally. It reinforces the importance of localization, and the more you can produce or source within your region, the less you're impacted by a pirate on the other side of the planet. And so, excuse me, sorry about that. I just wanted to show you guys something here real quick, because I don't know if most people know exactly where the Suez Canal really is here. So let me turn this off. There we go. So here we go. Let's zoom in here. So everybody knows where Iran is, right? We've all gotten familiar with that. Afghanistan next to it. This is where we're fighting, big fight right now. Over here is Saudi Arabia. You got the UAE, Dubai. This is what we're talking about in terms of the Strait of Hormuz, right? This section right here. And that's where a lot of the world's oil goes through, because it comes out of Kuwait and Iraq and that kind of stuff through the Persian Gulf. Now, and then the Gulf of Oman, which is right next to Oman. Now, if you go down here to the Red Sea, right, which is between Sudan, Egypt, and Saudi Arabia, this is where a lot of global shipping goes through, to be honest. And if we go up here, all the way up here near Cairo, up by the green belt here in north, what would that be, eastern Egypt, here's the Suez Canal, and this is where all the ships have to pass through to get out of the Red Sea and to the Mediterranean, and they have to go through this in order to do that if they don't want to go all the way around Africa, which could cost a lot of money. So this is where we're seeing a lot of backup of those container ships right now because we're seeing a lot more traffic of container ships into the Suez Canal because of the Strait of Hormuz closing. We're seeing a lot of oil through here, a lot of that, which is the reason for the backup, right? So just a quick geography lesson in case you guys weren't aware of that, right? And this little section here is actually Egypt. So if you guys didn't know that, Israel starts over here at this line. So just wanted people to understand that, right? To understand what we're talking about, because if that's too busy up here at the Suez Canal, then those ships have to go all the way around into the Mediterranean. So it's a long ways, right? So I just wanted to talk about that. A lot of people aren't super familiar with the geography of all of that. So the third story I wanted to talk about was grid stability. So this is a stark reminder on grid fragility, new reports and old warnings. So this is one that underpins almost everything that we do as preppers and off-grid homesteaders. It's the vulnerability of our electric grid. This week, we didn't see like a single catastrophic event, thankfully. Well, I should say in general, the public didn't. Um, we took a trip this week. Pause for a little funny side note here. We took a trip this week to Legoland, and we lost power at the hotel for like, I don't know, hour and a half or so. They made us like evacuate to the parking lot. It was hilarious, but I guess it was like 120,000 people lost power, including Legoland. So there wasn't one catastrophic event outside of Legoland. We'll start over there. But there is rather a series of reports and warnings that really form a disturbing pattern on the global level here. So we're seeing really a new focus on two major fronts, and that's cybersecurity and weather resilience here. First, key reports have highlighted the ongoing complex threat posed to our critical infrastructure by adversarial nation states and criminal organizations. This is the stuff that gets debated in congressional subcommittees, but it has real implications for us. The reality is, our grid control systems were often not built with modern security in mind, and retrofitting them is slow and expensive. A successful wide scale cyber attack on a regional grid is not a question of if, but when. And I'm always concerned for this as a possibility. And to be honest, anytime we lose power, it's a thought like, is this what's really happening right now? But or same thing with that, or with like Verizon, or T-Mobile, all of those. Always scared of that. Second, we're seeing continued warnings from meteorologists and utility companies. Sorry, holy cow, about the increasing strain placed on the grid by extreme weather. So it's the kind of a freezing event we saw in Texas a few years ago, or the projected extreme heat this summer. The aging infrastructure of the grid is being pushed to its limits more often. This week, we saw smaller, localized grid failures caused by storms that served as a microcosm of what a larger scale event could look like. I don't know, like Carlsbad, Legoland. So, why is this a top story this week? Well, because these aren't just hypotheticals anymore. They are warnings being issued by people in positions of power and knowledge. So, what is our kind of prepper and homesteader response here? We need to do a few things. We need to, one, review our off-grid power plans. Do you have batteries? Do you have solar? Do you have, what is that in general? You need to look at that and review it. And then two, you need to prioritize water filtration. Figure out what's levels of them. If you go back and look at a few of our water videos before, figure out which phases of water filtration you have and which ones you don't, and which ones you should invest in. Because there's different. There's like a water straw, and then there's large scale water production that you could use. And then number three is practice analog, non-digital living, right? So practice living off grid, right? Throw your phones in a bag in your dresser and try and live off grid for the weekend. Like, use literally nothing from the grid, no store-bought food, and see how it goes. And see that it's actually a great lesson for yourself and your family as to what you need to do for the future and things you need to purchase or get better at. So for the SITREP assessment for this morning for this story, The grid is the ultimate dependency. Your ability to survive and thrive without it is the core measure of your preparedness. So, our response is pretty simple. You need to review your generation plan as well. Like I mentioned before a little bit, if you have a generator, have you run it lately? Because I know that was a problem for us. We had a generator and we didn't run it, and the battery died, and now we're having problems. Do you have enough stabilized fuel, right? Gas doesn't last forever. Even with a stabilizer, it doesn't last for very long. So, do you have enough gasoline? Do you have diesel for your tractor if you need it? If you're moving towards solar, where are you in that process, and have you got it installed and maybe a battery? Prioritize water. In a grid down scenario, water pumps stop unless, I mean, that's, they stop if you have like a wide ranging city water system. So, do you have a well? Do you have a well pump that's on a battery, right? Do you have a way that you can operate it if you don't have a battery, maybe manually? Do you have a rain catchment system? I, I hate to say screw the government on that, but seriously, if you need to use it in an emergency, like catch the rain. I think those laws are absolutely ridiculous because I know there's some in California. I honestly don't know what they are, and I don't care. And most importantly, do you have a gravity fed or a manual water filtration system? If you don't, that should be your number one priority this week because water filtration can save you or can kill you, depending on the status of it, right? And finally, really here, you need to practice. Like I said, do a weekend without digital anything. Can you cook a meal without electricity? Can you keep your house warm or cool for that matter? Can you access information? Start dedicating a night a week to living analog, or maybe a weekend a month, and see where your gaps are. The reports this week should serve as a wake-up call to not get complacent. So, all right, folks, these are our three major sit reps for this week. These are the best stories I could find that really mattered to us as homesteaders or preppers. And we looked at the shifting terrain of the farm bill and local meat market. We saw the tangible impact of global choke points on our supply chain. And we received yet another stark reminder that our grid is fragile and our independence from it is our ultimate goal. So if you guys have any questions or thoughts on anything I said today, please put them in the comments. I will gladly reply to them as quickly as I can because I want this to be a discussion, right? I want us to talk through these issues. If you guys have any ideas for practice, analog days, weekends, whatever, drop them in the comments so we can all learn together and grow together so we can all become better prepared. And so I appreciate you guys joining me for the sit rep today. We did do it a little early. That's fine. So every weekend, keep in mind, it's between 7:30 and 8 o'clock is kind of when it's going to start. And it'll be about, 20, 30 minutes, just to give a quick review of 3 of the news stories that came up that we wanted to talk about from the week. And if you guys have any questions or comments during the live stream, we will talk about those and we will answer your questions. So, I also want to give a big shout out to Ground News. They're a huge sponsor of this show, and we will drop a link to them in the comments if you're interested in getting some good news stories that is well balanced and gives you right to the point. So thank you all for joining me. And remember, the sit rep isn't just about passive consumption. It's about active preparation. So use this information, analyze your own situation, and build your resilience. So I hope there's going to be a lot of great discussion in the comments about all this stuff, and I look forward to joining you guys in that. Let's keep that conversation going in the comments below. And if you found value in this briefing, please smash that like button and hit the subscribe button as well so you don't miss a sit rep every weekend, as well as videos that come out also on Sundays now, again, after our quick hospital stay for a kiddo. So we will have one tomorrow. It's going to be, I can't remember, but it'll be up tomorrow afternoon. So thank you very much. All of this really helps the algorithm push this content out to others who are trying to get prepared. And so remember, subscribe button, bell button, so you never miss the weekly sit rep. So stay tuned, stay aware, and most importantly, stay prepared. I'm Scott, and we'll see you next week.